beautiful ladies. Welcome back to Financial Flourish. I'm Michele, your host, your CPA, financial educator, and your sister in this money mindset journey. We're in season 2, and this is the Money Mindset Reboot series. And today, ladies, we're going there. The title of this episode is Emotional Spending. What are you really paying for? Because so often when you swipe that card or fill that card, it's not just about what you're buying, it's about how you're feeling. Today, I'm not unpacking this alone. I'm honored to be joined by an amazing board certified psychiatrist who's helping us connect our mental health to our money habits. Kellye, welcome to Financial Flourish. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hi, Michele. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Kellye Singletary. I'm a board certified psychiatrist specializing in general adult psychiatry with a focus on lifestyle medicine. I'm also the co owner of Upsing Telepsychiatry Services. And Michele, I'm so excited to be a part of this series with you. I know oftentimes when we talk about financial planning and getting financial advice, we always jump right into the what you should be doing and not doing. We very seldom see sort of starting, looking at the why. And so I'm very glad to be here to kind of look at that mindset
We're
shift.
happy to have you, and we know you're going to give a lot of value to our listeners. So let's start at the beginning. What is emotional spending, and how is it different from just treating yourself?
Um, Emotional spending is when you use money to cope with feelings or situations rather than making a conscious, planned purchase. Emotional spending is often driven by underlying emotions like feelings of inadequacy, having low self esteem, or even anxiety. You can kind of think of it as retail therapy, but on a whole other level. You might buy something impulsively because you're feeling down, stressed, or trying to keep
You
up with
mean the
others.
Joneses?
Yes, yes, exactly. Trying to keep up with the Joneses. You get this immediate boost that is usually temporary and is often followed by feelings of guilt, remorse, or increased financial strain. And so that creates this sort of vicious cycle of overspending and emotional distress. It's not about needing the item, but more so about trying to fill an emotional void or escape some level of discomfort.
You say that, and I think of persons who emotionally spend on food in response to something that's not going their way. And then they complain that they're
Mm-hmm.
gaining weight because of it. So I think about that.
Yeah, that's a perfect example, Michelle. We have this sort of emotional eating, as well as emotional spending, and sometimes, combining those together where you're spending the money on the food, right? And, that eating, again, it will fulfill the need right then. However, oftentimes it can be followed by guilt after the overeating kind of
Yes.
sets in. On the other hand, treating yourself, that's more of a conscious, intentional act of spending your discretionary income on something that you desire. And it's not necessarily driven by negative emotions and it doesn't lead to regret. This money that you're spending on, treating yourself is budgeted money. So it's budgeted for those non-essential things. And that can include going out for a nice dinner. Now, we're talking about dinner. Dinner is a meal that you're going to have anyway. So it's okay to spend money on that, when you're treating yourself. Having a nice piece of jewelry, even getting a new pair of shoes or a handbag, those are my pleasures, or taking a
Yes, my
vacation.
pleasure.
Uh-huh. Yes, yes. But when you're financially independent and you have a healthy money mindset, you can indulge in these life's pleasures, without having that guilt or stress behind it. Treating yourself is more of a reward. It's a planned enjoyment. And again, key point, which I know you want to hear this, it aligns with your
Amen.
financial goals, rather than
Yes.
derailing them. So, while both of these involve buying something you don't strictly need, the core difference lies in the motivation and the outcome. Emotional spending often stems from a place of distress and leads to more distress. Whereas treating yourself comes from a place of conscious choice, and it also contributes to your overall well being in a positive way without having those negative financial repercussions. Now, as a psychiatrist, it's important for me to help you manage your emotions and work towards getting to the root of and resolving the distress that leads to emotional spending. Um, you know, but I also encourage people to do self-care, especially in women. We oftentimes wear our superwoman
Yep.
cape, right? And we spend a lot of our time, attention, and resources on others, and we forget to take off that cape sometimes and treat ourselves and be kind
Yep.
to
We
ourselves.
forget that we need to put our mask on first to take care of ourselves before we start
Hmm.
taking care of anybody else.
Yes,
So, what
exactly.
I hear you saying, emotional spending is more of a coping mechanism, while treating yourself is a choice rooted in self care and financial clarity. Did I get that right?
You're absolutely right about that, Michelle. Emotional spending is usually reactive. It's more of a coping mechanism that sort of kicks in when we're feeling something that's uncomfortable, like stress, sadness, even feeling bored
Hmm.
or lonely. It's your brain saying, I need relief now. And spending becomes that sort of shortcut to feeling better in the moment. But treating yourself, that's more proactive. It's rooted in intention and not emotion. You're telling yourself, I've planned for this, I value this, and I'm choosing to enjoy it. It's self care that aligns with your financial goals, not something that derails them, as I mentioned earlier. So the difference is really about emotional state and intention. Emotional spending often comes from a place of lack or pain, while treating yourself comes from a place of wholeness and peace.
Okay, that's deep. So, what I'm hearing is that it's about motivation and outcome. Because let's get honest. On the surface, emotional spending and treating yourself might look the same. But once you start looking at the
Mhm.
why, then you'll figure out what's really going on. Because as you said about the dinner, you can have a dinner that can either be emotional spending or treating yourself. But it depends on the
Mhm.
motive and the outcome. That's how we're going to figure out which one it is.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what I'm
Okay.
saying.
So let's talk about triggers. What kind of emotional states leads women to spend? And what are we really trying to buy?
Hmm. That's a really insightful follow-up, Michelle. When it comes to emotional spending, it's often less about the item itself and more about the feelings or the perceived needs we're trying to address. And so for women, there are, several emotional states that can trigger this kind of emotional spending. We talked about feelings of inadequacy or low self-esteem. So sometimes spending can be a form of compensatory spending where you're trying to use retail therapy to sort of make up for feelings of not being
Hmm.
good enough or having low self-worth. The idea is that buying expensive items might make you feel better about yourself or improve your social status, even if that boost is only
Yeah.
temporary.
Unfortunately, our society, though, promotes this a lot.
That's very true. That's very true. And so when we talk about keeping up with the
Hmm.
Joneses and, trying to stay on top, y- that can create a lot of stress and anxiety. And so money itself is a huge source of stress for many women. There have been studies that have shown that 56% of women report that money matters negatively affect their mental health. So there's a strong tie there between your mental health, your
Hmm.
mental well-being, and how comfortable you are
Hmm.
around money. And Michelle, as you've mentioned before, this anxiety can stem from personal financial struggles, economic uncertainty, or even childhood experiences with money. So remembering, how you watched your mother manage money, or your grandparents, or your aunts, and and so forth. When you're feeling overwhelmed by financial worries, such as, job loss, medical emergencies, rising
Hmm.
living costs, ironically, spending becomes a coping mechanism for this stress and anxiety. Um, and we see that all the time.
Yes.
Some of us sometimes we just have difficulty with controlling impulse. For some, it's simply difficult resisting that sudden urge to make unplanned purchases, even if they don't need or can afford the item. There's just this sort of impulse that makes them buy it.
Wow.
You mentioned earlier social pressure and comparison. So in today's world, especially with social media, there's a strong tendency to compare
Yes.
ourselves to others. We're looking at a snapshot, a moment in
The
someone's
best
life
moment. The
that
best moment.
right, right. That so we think, right? That's what it appears to be. And this can lead to that desire to keep up with our peers. And here we go again talking about keeping up with the
Yes.
Joneses, right? So spending money on items or experiences that you might not be able to afford just to fit in or to avoid feeling different. From what you might see or compare yourself, to others.
So, what are we really trying to buy then when we engage in emotional spending?
And like I said before, it is rarely about or just about that product itself, that item that we're buying. Instead, we're often seeking, sort of a temporary emotional boost,
Hmm.
right? Sort of, a fleeting sense of happiness, excitement, or relief from the negative feelings or emotions that we're
Yes.
experiencing. Now, this temporary boost is partially due to a spike in dopamine levels, which is linked closely to our motivations, our reward centers, and reinforcement. Oftentimes, with this emotional spending, we may be trying to buy that validation, and find improved self perception. Looking for the hope that a new purchase will make us feel better about
Yes.
ourselves, or somehow enhance our social standing. As women, sometimes we're just looking for a sense of control. When other areas in our life feel uncertain, spending can provide a momentary illusion of
Wow.
control. Sometimes, as women, growing up, or if you've been in relationships where you did not feel that you had the opportunity or the
Yes.
space to be involved in making financial
Hmm.
decisions, um, then you have no control over how money is spent around you or for you or by you. But when you may have those moments where you're seeking that control, to take that control. And so sometimes that's what we're buying when we're doing this emotional
So we're trying
spending.
to make a point there, you're saying. We're trying to make a point as women. With a sense of control, we're trying to make a point that we are in control.
Yes, we're trying to, right, make a point that we do have control and find some way to have control in our lives, especially when it comes to
Okay.
money. And other times, we may be trying to buy belonging or acceptance. We talked a lot about the social influences. So that desire to fit in with a social group or conform to perceived norms. And emotional spending can sometimes create an area of escape or a distraction. So it's a way to avoid confronting deeper financial anxieties or other uncomfortable emotions that we're trying to get away from. So the challenge is that these purchases of emotional relief are often short lived, and they can lead to a cycle, that vicious cycle of guilt, and increased financial strain.
So what I hear you saying is that the problem is that the high doesn't last, but the bill does.
You are right about that. Yes, ma'am. Yes, and that's what creates some of that emotional distress is when you see the
Exactly.
bill. Um, so you feel relief for a moment, but oftentimes that is quickly followed by feelings of guilt or regret or shame. And then there's that cycle again, that emotional
So
cycle.
you talk about dopamine earlier. Can you explain that for us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is science behind this. Dopamine is a chemical, it's a neurotransmitter in our brain, and it's often called the feel good neurotransmitter. Its primary role in consumer behavior is linked to motivation, anticipation of reward, or reinforcement. And it drives our wanting system. I want it, right? And the way that this is, there are several sort of stages in the buying process, right? And each step along the way, there's a different level of reward. And so when we start in that anticipation and desire phase, dopamine levels rise not just when you receive the reward, not just when you make the purchase, but also during that anticipation phase. So this means that the excitement of browsing, creating a wish list, or even just seeing an appealing advertisement can trigger that first, sort of dopamine
Wow, wow.
release. Right, right. And this creates a pleasurable sensation that then sort of fuels that desire to make the purchase. So this is the beginning of it. If you remember when you were a kid and you got that Toys R Us, I mean, some people may not remember, but you got that Toys R Us or that, that toy
You're
catalog in the
dating us here.
mail.
You're dating us
And
here now, Kelly.
I know, I know, I know, I know. However, when you get that and we used to sit down in the middle of the floor, open it up and start circling all the
Yes.
toys we wanted for Christmas. But even in that phase, that's, that dopamine spike that gets you excited and
Yes.
ready to get something, to receive something. So then you have the reward reinforcement. So the actual act of making the purchase, especially a purchase that brings perceived satisfaction, can trigger another surge of dopamine in the brain's reward centers. So, this immediate sense of gratification reinforces that behavior, making us more likely to repeat it in
Wow,
the
that's what I
future.
was thinking.
So, yeah, exactly. Yes. So, if you think, okay, I'm feeling down, I'm feeling bad, and you go through and you make this emotional purchase, then you get this, surge of dopamine, which makes you feel
Yes.
good for a little bit, right? But it's enough to kind of, stick
Yes,
with
because we
you,
all want to
right?
feel
So
good.
exactly, exactly. So the next time you're feeling a little down, you're thinking about the only thing you're thinking about is I want to feel good. What's going to make me feel good? And you remember that time that you bought that thing that you really didn't need that's still over in the corner that you
I
haven't even
know.
opened yet, but you remember how you felt when you made that purchase. And so, that surge of dopamine has, created that space to reinforce that
Yes.
behavior. So this is a key factor in impulse buying. And it can even kind of contribute to compulsive shopping
Wow.
behaviors.
So you're saying it's all
Yeah,
science, right?
absolutely. I'm telling you, it's science. This is real stuff. This is your brain. This is your brain working. Yes. And advertisers know this. They know this. So dopamine is also implicated in our response to novelty and urgency. So those limited time
Oh,
offers that you see
yes.
flash across the screen, exclusive deals, that feeling of FOMO, that fear of
Yes.
missing out, it can amplify that dopamine release,
Wow.
right? Because now you have this
Yep.
urgency, right? And that's what pushes, a lot of consumers towards making those spontaneous
Wow.
purchases.
Yes, like those today's the
Yeah.
last day for this price, right? And then you go
Hmm.
back a week after and
Yes.
they still
Uh-huh.
have it on sale.
They still have it on sale. Right. Exactly. Exactly. So, and then going back to the social aspect of this, when purchases are associated with status, or admiration from others, the anticipation of receiving that praise or that recognition can also cause a release of
Mm.
dopamine. And so that motivates us to buy things that align with societal expectations and not necessarily things that align with
Yep,
our
all
budget.
financial goals.
Our financial goals. Exactly. Exactly. So that's what dopamine does to us. That's the science of
Well,
it
thank you
all.
so much. I needed that lesson. And hopefully,
Yeah,
people would
absolutely.
understand it better because I sure did not understand that.
Right. When you know more, you can do
Yes,
better,
yes,
right?
yes. Okay, so let's get practical. How do we stop the cycle without falling into guilt or deprivation?
Well, Michelle, there are several things that you can do. The first thing is, taking a pause and naming the emotion. And this is something that I practice myself. I've learned to
Hmm.
practice myself. So before you buy anything, just take a
Yes,
pause, even just 10 seconds to ask yourself two questions. What am I feeling right now? And am I trying to escape something or comfort myself? So trying to figure out, how you're feeling and the
yes,
why in that moment. And sometimes this tiny pause creates some emotional space between the trigger and the transaction. So you might be surprised that you may end up backing away
yes,
from that purchase. And I'm telling you, this works. It truly works. I can tell you by my own testimony that this works. I have learned to, if I feel like I'm making an impulsive, buy, I'm scrolling on my phone and I see something, oh, wow, I could use that for something, nothing specific that I'm thinking in my head, but I can use that for something. And I put it in the cart. I've learned to train myself to take a
yes.
step back, maybe put my phone down, walk away, and come back to it. And oftentimes I find when I come back to it, either one, I've
Yep.
forgotten about it, right? Or two, I come back and I just don't have that same
The high
feeling
is
about
gone.
it.
The high
You
is
know, that
gone.
those dopamine
Exactly.
levels, the high is gone. Yes, those dopamine levels have come back down. So that saves me
Yes,
money,
yes,
right?
yes.
And saves room in my house from
Clutter.
having things that I didn't need, right? The clutter. Number one, taking a pause and really sort of taking a deep dive and looking at your emotions in that moment. Um, Another thing that can be done, and this is something that I use in my practice all the time, is sort of creating a comfort menu. And of course, the non-spending edition. So, so making a list of 5 to 10 things that bring comfort without
Wow.
costing money. So comfort without
Yes, I
cost.
like that.
Okay. Yeah, so 5 things that you can do. Like I just spoke about, putting my phone down, taking, walking away. So maybe taking a 5-minute walk outside, calling a friend, listening to music, worship music, taking a hot shower, or even journaling and praying. You can call this your emotional
I
reset
like it.
list. Yeah, absolutely. I tell people, I probably ask this question 10 times a day of my patients. I ask, what are some healthy distractions? What are some things that you have in place to help redirect your mind away from the negative emotions or the feelings that you're having? What are some things that you use? So this is that type of list, some healthy distractions. And it's important that you keep it somewhere handy, so we all always have
Yes.
our phones. So keep the list in your phones, or write it down, stick it on the fridge or on your mirror, but somewhere where you can get to it, and remind yourself of those tools. We always want to have a toolbox full of tools that are going to work for us when we
Yes.
need them. Yeah. Another practical thing that can be done is journaling your triggers. So taking a week and, every time that you have that urge to spend, just taking a moment and tracking it. Keep a list in your phone or just get a little notebook or a piece of paper, and write down, in that moment, what happened right before you had that urge? What was going on? So you can start to try to identify some of those triggers. How are you feeling?
Mhm.
And also, what did you actually need in that moment? Did you need that item? Or were you looking for, were you bored or feeling lonely, or needing something to make you feel
Wow.
good? And then by that case, if you figure out that you didn't actually need that, you can go back to number two and you can do one of those things on your list from number two. Um, it's also important that you give yourself, uh, permission to treat. So create a budget line item that is specific and, like we mentioned before,
Yes.
intentional, um, about treating yourself. So you can actually build room in your budget to treat yourself. It is okay to do that. Your budget is not just about your
Yes.
bills and what you owe. And, it is also about what you owe
Yes.
yourself. And you treat yourself like a bill, So create that line item in your monthly budget. And you can have a category in your budget that's like $50 for guilt-free joy
Yes.
spending, and so when the money is there, you've allocated it, you can treat yourself intentionally without the guilt, the shame, or the aftermath that can come from emotional spending. This shifts spending from a reactionary thing to more of a reward based and empowering moment for
Wow.
yourself.
I'm really glad that you brought that up so that we can reinforce that the budget is not restrictive. You can treat
Mhm.
yourself, you can put it in there, whether it's your nails you want to do, your hair, your spa treatment, whatever it is you want, just put it in the budget. So I really like this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Very important. Very important. Because we talked about the superwoman. So that's you taking off that cape and making sure that you're
Yes.
including yourself in that self-care. Lastly, it's important to speak life over your finances. If you can't think it, you can't speak it, it's going to be hard for you to
Hmm.
start doing it. So replace the guilt with grace. Michelle, with the Financial Flourish podcast, you've been speaking to this from the beginning. So I think it's important, and I support you using
Hmm.
affirmations, positive affirmations like, I'm learning to care for myself without overspending. I deserve joy and rest, and I don't have to buy it.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. My healing is more powerful than my habits. And so, speak these things aloud, write them down, put them on sticky notes and put them on your mirror or in your car, wherever you're going to see them, and remind yourself of these positive things that you're doing for yourself. Because, your words will help to retrain your brain and your actions. So these are tools that have helped many of our clients. And it's really just kind of the beginning of your healing journey. Starting at the beginning, understanding the why, then that allows you to be able to do the things that you need to do to stay on track and reach your financial goals.
Wow, Kelly, you've unpacked so much for us today. And I'm so excited of the journey that we're on right now. Now, ladies, you don't have to earn your worth with the purchases or bury your pain with packages, is what she's been saying. Kelly has given us tools to help you reconnect to your real needs with compassion, not control. Your triggers don't have to become your transactions. With these steps that Kelly has given us, you're not just changing your spending pattern, but you're changing your money story. I just want to
Mm,
say, especially to the ladies, that it's not about shame. It's intentional, as we say. We've all been there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had my moments where I was trying to buy joy or trying to numb a really tough day that I had at work. I felt good in the moment, as she said, but afterwards it was really
Yeah.
bad. So, let's
Mm-hmm.
just remember to be kind to ourselves. Let's have progress over perfection. We're not trying to be perfect here, we're just trying to make progress. And remember that peace is the best purchase you'll ever make. Your spending patterns are a message, and when you listen, you heal. Our expert Kellye has given you tips and tools that you can start using right away. So start using them now. Kellye, thank you so much for helping us unmask the emotional spending in such a practical and realistic way. I know that just like I am, the audience is going to benefit from this episode. We continue our journey to financial freedom.
Thank you so much for having me on too. I'm excited to be a
Of
part of this
course.
series.
So, ladies, if this episode spoke to you, if you are now much clearer on the reasons for your spending, you can now identify emotional spending. Invite someone else to listen, someone else who you know is going through the same problem. Remember that we have tools to help you. We have the Money Mindset Workbook. This is a workbook that you can use to fill out some of the advice that Kellye gave us. You can fill this out in the workbook. Now, don't try to fill it out ahead. I know some of you are very studious and you want to try and get everything done at once. Don't try to do that, because then if you do that, then you're missing out the emotional and spiritual unpacking that we're doing together. So just trust us. We're building a foundation. We're doing it one step at a time. So complete the workbook after each episode. I say that, but I know some of you are like, no, 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 I'm going to just go ahead and fill the whole thing out. Now, if you have listened to Kellye, and if you feel that you need more than what she has given you, she and her team can help you in your healing journey. She's part of the company Upsing Telepsychiatry.
This
So
is
you
yes.
can check them out on their
Mhm.
website at www.upsingtelepsychiatry.com. You can also connect with them on Instagram at Upsing Telepsych, and that's UPSINGTELEPSYCH. Now, in our next episode, we'll be looking at identity shift, going from scarcity girl to wealthy woman. This is part of the Money Mindset Reboot series. And guess what? Kellye is coming back next week. But she's not coming alone. She's bringing her colleague, Dr. Monique Upton, and she's going to be here to help us. So we're ready for our identity shift. I hope that you are too. You don't want to miss it. Now, you can connect with us on Spotify, subscribe to Financial Flourish Podcast, and you can also follow us on Instagram @_financial flourish, or send us an email if you feel comfortable doing that. info@absoluteaccountingcpa.com. We look forward to hearing from you. So, ladies, until next time, take another step towards your mindset shift, and don't forget to flourish.